Hey gang, welcome back to System Breakdowns. This month we're covering Ecuadorian fighter Marlon Chito Vera. This guy's fantastic. This is a guy I've been sleeping on that people told me, like, look, you got to watch that Chito Vera versus Rob Font fight. And I am glad I did, because I went down the rabbit hole on this guy after that. As soon as I watched that fight, I just went through and I started watching all his fight footage, because this guy's fantastic. He's a really great example of a very systematic technical striker. Everything he does interacts together really well. And he's exciting to watch. He does really, really fun things, and I've had a great time breaking this guy down. Very much a worthwhile breakdown, and I learned a ton from watching it. So hopefully you do too. So stay tuned. Let's start breaking down Chito Vera. Okay, guys, so as we start talking about Marlon Vera, before I get into defensive tactics, I want to point out two key attributes of Chito Vera that I think are really important as we go through this whole video that you pay attention to. The first one is subtlety and motion. Everything that he does has significant impacts in ways that you might not realize at first, but as we go on, you're like, oh, holy crap. And this is something he does really well, and a lot of it is because he has a lot of subtlety in what he does. Little things have big impacts when you talk about Chito Vera. The other thing is that his ability to break the agreement is fantastic. He's probably the best at this in the UFC, in my opinion. He is so good at, for those of you who don't know what breaking the agreement is, it's setting a pattern and then breaking it. So he is amazing at getting you thinking low, 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 high, right? Once you get set on this pattern, you get convinced that this is the way things are going to be until it's not. And he does it offensively, he does it defensively, he does it in movement. He does this a lot, and it's very deceptive. And so it's really important that when you watch his fights, you look for, he's going to set a pattern in little things, like putting people up against the cage and attacking in a specific way. He'll do this several times until he doesn't, and then he switches it up and he catches people. His ability to break the agreement is unparalleled. It's fantastic. And so when we go through everything in this video, I want you to keep subtlety and breaking the agreement in mind. Now, let's talk about some specifics of his defense, which are fantastic. The first thing I want to talk about is his stance switching. He's very known for being an avid stance switcher. It gives him a lot of advantages. So first of all, I want to mention, once again, we talked about subtlety. The subtlety and movement with which he stance switches is amazing. And he does two things in particular that I notice a lot. One is that he will take steps that are subtle in his defensive gestures as you're coming at him, right? He's just in here, and then all of a sudden he's taking a full step, and he's stance switched on you, and you haven't even realized it. The other thing he does a lot is he'll hide it behind his attacks. Next thing you know, he's stance switch on you while you're thinking about the attack. Next thing you know, he's now in a different stance. This gives him a lot of a defensive advantage, because not only does he have better angles for attack offensively, where he can start switching things up, so now instead of just an outside kick, it means that you are less likely to defend this. So this is both offensively and defensively important. So if I constantly attack with the same outside leg kick, you're going to get hit to it, start to defend. But then if you start coming in, I shell up, and then I'm attacking with the inside leg kick, now I'm changing the avenue of attack. And then I start adding level changes onto it. And then I start breaking the agreement. And now these subtle stance switches start paying off in really important ways. It also means it's harder for you to access me, because I'm going to change the range game a lot in this. And this is something that Chito Vera is really good at. He's going to be in here playing from this orthodox stance for a little bit, and then he goes to southpaw where he can dominate with his kicking. And now the range is different. So as you try to attack, he now has more response time. And then he comes in here, and this constant subtle stance switching allows him to play with range. So he's either closer than you think or further than you think. And he's very good at maximizing the use of this. It's very subtle stuff, and it's very effective. In addition to that, he adds a lot of clogging the lanes in there, particularly from the southpaw, that as he stance switches, you see a lot of this lead hand out here, where he's in here clogging the lane. It's a lot of movement to intercept anything that's coming in. It's something you now have to get past. But simultaneously, it's a rangefinder for him to know how far to intercept you, or excuse me, to strike you. What is his range when he's in a position, whether it's kicking or punching? He's going to clog the lane so it's harder to get to him. He's going to maintain top position so that he can strike more easily. And he's going to have a better sense of range than you are. So this is a big thing that he does. And then from here, it gives him time to respond back when you attack. And now he's going to go to his high guard shell. And he does this in a couple ways. Sometimes he just backs off, like so. Sometimes he drops in low. But what you're going to notice out of him is he'll do this several times. And this is going to end up later on being an example of breaking the agreement, where as he comes back and defends, later on, he's going to do this several times, so you get used to it. When he fought Rob Font, it was a lot of the 1, 2, 3 that Font kept throwing that, pop, 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 right? And he kept throwing this over and over again. And every time he threw it, Chito Vera he shelled up, right? He did this like 4 or 5 times. And what he does is he gets you used to this idea that, okay, every time I attack this guy, he's going to shell up and back out. You know, Rob Font would come in with that uppercut. Oh, he shells up, maybe you catch me. Okay, I shell up, and then we reset. You attack, I shell up, we reset. I throw an attack, you attack, I shell up, we reset. That's the pattern he's setting until it's not. Then he starts using this to tie into shelling up to takedowns, shelling up to clinches, things like that. It's a very dangerous tactic that he uses. And it's something I want you to pay attention to when we start talking about clinches, and we'll talk about that more in counters. But his ability to use the shell deceptively is a good example of breaking the agreement. Finally, I want to talk about like posting. This is another thing he does when we talk about like clogging the lanes. When he's using this top position, part of the reason he does this is as guys throw jabs, you'll see a lot of this step into the outside and posting on the hand. This is going to give him opportunities for countering. It's also going to give him a lot of angle opportunities as he's in here. So this top position, clogging, and rangefinder, this front hand has a lot of purposes in here. And he'll use this for stuff like redirecting and getting in here and striking. But he uses it to kind of post them on the outside, or even sometimes as much as like hard middle block stuff. And it's really interesting to see this being done on a regular basis in such a subtle way, where as guys come in, it's a lot of the subtle parry, but it's not just a parry, it's also posting, keeping him at a dominant angle for just a short half of a second to land a successful counter strike. Really, really subtle stuff, right? We talked about subtlety. Great example of it. And then there's one other thing I do want to mention, which is clinching. He uses the clinch a lot successfully as a defensive tactic, and we'll talk about different ways that he clinches later on and where he breaks agreement within clinches. But this is a good example of something that he does as a defensive tactic as well. When guys like Rob Font start coming at him, pop, 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 right? You know, he shells up, and then he starts breaking the agreement by entering into a clinch, tying up in those moments that would have been otherwise a rock'em sock'em. So he determines when the rock'em sock'ems happen, right? When you go swinging for the fences with this guy, it's because he decided it's going to happen. We'll talk about that later on. But this is something that it's one of his tactics that by using the clinch, it also allows him to control the pace, it allows him to dictate terms, and more importantly, it allows him to be dominant at all times, because that clinch game of his is solid, and he knows it. And if he can put you in his clinch, you are in real danger. So this is another one of his defensive tactics to kind of control where the fight's going to be at. So that's going to be doing it for most of the defense. Like I said, because he uses a lot of that high guard, shell guard, the stance switch, clogging the lanes, posting out. This type of stuff makes him very difficult to actually connect with. His movement is very solid, and it's also just, man, he's a step ahead of you with a lot of this stuff. He knows what you're throwing at him, and he's got the tactics to deal with it. But while he's doing this stuff, he's setting the stage later on to land heavy shots on you. So stay tuned. Next part, we'll start talking about some of his offense. Okay, let's talk about Marlon Vera's offense, which is obviously the thing that you came here to see. Everybody loves the offense stuff. It's fun. To begin with, you know, a lot of his kicking is about range control and breaking the agreement, like we talked about. So from the outside, you're going to see a lot of stance switching. He's going to throw the leg kicks from both sides. He's going to throw these front kicks to the body, right? Both feet, right? Both sides. You never know which one's coming. And he's attacking his body a lot. He's going to do rear side body kicks, particularly from a southpaw. We'll talk about why in a minute when he does it, particularly as he backs guys up. But as he starts doing this stuff, then he starts breaking the agreement. He does this a lot, particularly early on in the round. Sets his punches behind it, makes you forget about it. You know, constantly working this stuff from the outside, and then he lands a big front kick to your face, and next thing you know, you just ate a major shot because you got used to this front kick to the body. He does the same thing with his high roundhouse kicks, the flying knee, all this stuff from there. Very, very dangerous stuff from the outside. And what I really love is, and this is what made the Rob Font fight so exciting, when you are a level change fighter who likes to break the agreement, there is nothing better than the front leg side kick for Taekwondo. Why? Because this is a side kick, it's a hook kick, and it's a roundhouse kick. And they all come from the same spot. And if you don't know how to deal with that, you're going to get caught over and over. And that's what happened to Rob Font. He came in and he threw this, got him used to the side kick in here by throwing it only once or twice, back to the front kicks and stuff like that. And the next thing you know, he lands a heavy hook kick, kind of half side kick, half hook kick, gets it right in that orbital. And man, it was nasty. It's probably the best hook kick I've ever seen in MMA. It was fantastic. And so adding this dimension into his game has now elevated Chito Vera to a whole new level. I think if he starts adding this in more and more, guys in MMA are not really well equipped for dealing with the front leg side kick already. And if he's attacking with the Holy Trinity, as I like to call it, man, he's going to be tearing guys up adding this into his already extensively awesome game. It works perfect for what he's doing. The level changes and breaking the agreement, and he's already doing it, and he's good that he doesn't overuse it. It's just enough to make you forget about it and not know how to deal with it. Brilliant stuff. So then, from here, let's talk about his punching a little bit. Now, generally speaking, he's going to throw a left hand, put his right behind it and stuff like that. He likes to lead with the left. That is his pattern. But what he generally tends to do is, from orthodox, he likes to come around the side with that hook kick, or that hook punch mostly. And then when he switches to southpaw, then he starts wanting to put that cross down the pipe. And part of this has to do with that subtle posting that we talked about. That's one of his tactics that he likes to use. And sometimes it's just he gets guys kind of broken down here. Oh, hook punch. He comes out here, front kick, right? And then it's a cross down the pipe, right? It's once again getting guys used to this pattern of outside kicking, and then he throws that big left and he lands it hard. This is why he has so much success landing it so clean, because he gets guys' hands dropping with all this body kicking and the leg kicking and all this type of stuff from the outside. And then they come in, oh, he defends, he switches stance, right? Constant working, goes high, and then he's back out here, and he gets you thinking about, and then pow! He lands heavy right down the pipe because he got you thinking about a low outside kicking game until it's not. Meanwhile, he's going to be working some other tactics. So at this point, let's talk about clinching and getting guys behind the black line. For those of you who don't know, there's like a black line in the center of the octagon. When you get guys past it, they start getting backed up to the cage. This is a danger zone. His tendency from there is to go southpaw mostly, because he knows most guys run this way, which means they're going to run into his roundhouse kick. They're going to run into his roundhouse kick. They're going to run into his cross, right? All this stuff, he can start throwing it as they start running away. And then he starts doing cool stuff. With the Frankie Edgar fight, he did this, and he's done it a couple times also, but this is probably the most successful he landed. He'd throw these outside kicks, he throws the front kick. Frankie Edgar starts dropping his head to get away from it. So what does he do? He switches, he throws like he's going to throw the front kick, knee up, throws the high knee right to Frankie Edgar's head, and he literally drops right down into it. Really brilliant use of that, breaking the agreement. Once again, subtle, very effective stuff. Other things that he's going to do from here is he's going to start putting a lot of pressure on you, and he's going to create what I call a fake rock'em sock'em. What I mean by that is this. As he starts getting in here, he'll start doing a lot of stuff like framing in here with his hand, not really even clinching yet. And what he's doing is he's creating a situation where he's creating a rock'em sock'em. So he throws a couple punches, frames in here, maybe throws some of these elbows and stuff. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, but then what he does is he creates a situation where guys go, oh, we're swinging for the fences. And when they do, he drops his head, lets them clash, and then he throws a combination. They throw back, he defends, pop, pop. He has them under the belief that, oh, we're banging now, right? We're tough guys. We're going to, macho man, as Richard Pryor puts it. We're going to bang, right? We're going to throw heavy hands at each other. And he goes, that's what you think we're doing. What I'm doing is I'm throwing, covering, letting you throw big shots, and then I'm throwing hard back at you. That's when I'm coming in with these big elbows, right? I'm letting you throw it, and then I go, oh, pop, pop. It's not really swinging for the fences. It's not a rock'em sock'em, as I like to call it. It's a fake rock'em sock'em. He believes we're both swinging hard, but Chito Vera's not eating real damage. He's only giving it. So it's a nice little tactic that he uses. Very subtle stuff, like I said. It looks like he's swinging for the fences. If you watch the fights and you slow him down, he's not. Then from there, let's start talking about clinch game. And man, this guy has such a fun clinch game. First of all, offensively, we talked about he leads with this left a lot, right? Either side. One of the things he does is he puts it behind and he gets his collar tie. Now it's short elbows. It's confirming to the plum clinch, right? As he starts coming in here, throwing these knees, elbows on top, all this type of stuff, right? So it's either a collar tie with elbows and punches and knees, or he actually uses this here, throws the left, gets the collar tie, and then he's going to confirm with his plum clinch. And if he gets you in here, man, you got to work to get out of it. And I really like that he doesn't let you out of it. He's going to continue to attack as long as he can and force you to disengage. And when you do, he's going to hit you on the way out. It's dangerous. But then he has a couple other clinches that he uses. When he puts guys back, like I said, he'll sometimes use this frame, and sometimes he'll transition this, and he'll start coming in here to stuff like this, right? Coming into these type of clinches, and he's going to use that as a trap later on. We'll talk about in a moment. But from here, it's a lot of knee strikes, takedown opportunities and stuff like that. He'll be throwing in here, but he's also kind of able to catch his breath and contain the fight and slow it down when he wants to. Or he gets double unders. And he uses this once again. Lots of knee striking in here. Using this to set up his takedowns and stuff like that. This is the type of stuff you're going to see him using offensively against the cage. From here, now we start getting into some kind of like traps that he has with his shell. And I really love this. One of the things, we talked about, he likes to use this a lot. When he shells up, we talked about one of the things he does is he comes in here and he convinces you, oh, you're attacking my shell, reset, okay. Bam! You attack the shell, reset, and then this time he drops and he resets and he comes underneath and he gets to here and he gets his clinch, and what he does is now all of a sudden it's a head and arm choke and he's going to take you down. And what I really love about this guy's takedowns, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but his takedowns mostly occur off of a standing submission threat. And that is something I find interesting that I don't see a lot of in MMA. It's, taking down, getting him up against the cage and taking him down. Most of this guy's takedowns are because he's threatening a legitimate takedown. One of the things he does as a counter sometimes is as he comes in here, if that guy starts shelling up, as he starts throwing stuff, he's going to snap their head down, get to a guillotine, and pull them down to a north-south turtle. And then he's able to back him up against the cage, knock him out. I think it was it Hernandez he did that to? He did it to somebody that I think it might have been Hernandez, that he snapped him down, got him in the guillotine, put him up against the cage, and then it was just, really nasty from there. He just kind of finished him off. But I really like the idea of shelling, coming underneath, and now we're getting into a head and arm choke. And while you're defending that head and arm choke, we're going to the ground with it. From here, he'll also use this, cover up here, crash in, get to his clinch, throw these nasty elbows, knees, plum clinch, tie up here, all this stuff. Start to think about shrugging him over. And this is what I'm saying about traps, right? And breaking the agreement with the plum clinch. This becomes uppercuts. This becomes head and arm chokes, right? This becomes, I crash in and then I get my collar tied. And this is what I'm talking about, using clinches as a defensive tool, using it offensively, wheels within wheels. And this is what I'm talking about, subtleties and breaking the agreement. Oh, it's brilliant stuff. So that's kind of like what you're going to see out of his clinch game. A couple other defensive things I want to touch on. One of them is really the big one is that, we talked about this posting. Most of the time what he'll do is he'll get you in the habit of, he attacks the shell, he attacks the shell until it's time not to. And he kind of times it right. And what he's looking for is you to attack this lead hand. And then he's going to parry, uppercut, hook, cross. He throws generally some sort of a version of that. Maybe it's a parry, elbow, hook, uppercut, cross, or jab. Like he starts throwing this type of stuff where he's parry, uppercut, right? Parry, cross, parry, elbow, hook. And he starts putting together combinations off of that. And you're like, wait a minute, you were playing this high shell game a second ago. What happened to that? And this is where I'm saying, like, he comes in here, throws these outside kicks. Oh, you shell. He attacks, you shell. Or they attack, he shells up. He attacks the leg kick, attacks the front kick. Level change. Oh, they attack and he shells. Right? He comes in here, goes in the clinch. They attack and he shells. Then he comes in here and he starts getting into range. And they go to attack, and this time he doesn't shell. This time he parry, uppercut, jab, hook, something like that. Like, pop, 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 pop. All of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, that's not what happened here. I was supposed to attack your shell. You didn't do that. Quick parry, he loves to do this. Quick parry to an uppercut, quick parry to an elbow. Really, really a nice use of a change of tactics. But once again, it plays to his strengths. Getting to the outside with this parry we talked about. See how everything interweaves in a really amazing way. And that's the type of stuff that I really enjoy about his game. The last thing I want to talk about in this segment is, I know I'm bouncing around a lot, but it's because things interweave. When he gets guys back up against the cage, which you're going to see a lot of, we talked about that rock'em sock'em that he does. It's a fake rock'em sock'em. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's a takedown. Show you what I mean. He comes in here, he gets framed, he starts throwing this, they bomb, right? He defends here, he ties up to here. He throws his knees, I'm bombarding it with attacks, and then it's a quick Kasotagari. A lot of his takedowns against the cage, he likes the Kasotagari, he likes to bring him back and throw. This stuff occurs after he's thrown a couple bombs at you. He gets you so concerned about striking here, right? He's attacking the legs, pop, and then all of a sudden, it's not. It's a very sudden change up, so the takedowns kind of come out of the blue. And once again, setting the agreement. We're striking from here, right? This is striking against the cage, right? I get my double underhooks, bah, bah, and then all of a sudden, now while you think I'm attacking from here, now all of a sudden it's a takedown. This is masterful stuff. Super high level, very impressive. So stay tuned. In the last segment, we're going to come back talk about his grappling a little bit. Okay, this last segment's going to be pretty short. I'm going to kind of blast through this because his jiu-jitsu game is very consistent, but it's very effective. The guy's a jiu-jitsu black belt, and I think he's a 10th planet black belt if I remember. But he is very consistent in his approach. What I really like is he has kind of a couple positions he's going to default back to, and he's going to force the game there, but he transitions really well, he threatens really well. So here's some of the things you'll see. I've only seen him a little bit in bottom side control. He usually does not end up there very long. Generally from there, if you get him in a side control, he's going to quickly recover back to a guard, or he's going to start coming over here and threatening leg locks, forcing you to escape, and using this to transition back to his feet. One of the things I'm thinking about making a video on is actually talking about leg locks in MMA and when you should go for them, when you should not, because they're getting overused to the point where they're not working. And I think almost at this point, if you're on the bottom, your best use of them is to escape a position to get back to your feet. And that's how I'm mostly seeing it used now. And this is how I've seen him use it. Now, as far as guard play, all of his guards kind of work under the same principle, whether it's half guard, butterfly, closed guard. Generally, he's going to try to get back to a closed guard. It seems to be where he feels the most comfortable. Once he gets there, very concerned with posture control and throwing elbows. This is mostly what he's looking to go for from here. From there, he's going to start pushing back on the feet. He's going to start trying to come up to a high guard and stuff like that to keep your posture broken down so he can throw these elbows. From there, once he gets the opportunity, he's going to start coming out, changing angles, and start going for arm bars, going for the Trinity on the ground. You know, we talked about the Taekwondo Trinity. Well, he's also doing the ground Trinity, so I guess he's all about that Trinity. The Trinity on the ground, of course, from the closed guard is the arm bar, omoplata, and triangles. So that's a sequence that you'll see him attack a lot. And mostly, once again, I don't think I think he's like, well, if I can get it, that's great. But if he doesn't, it's creating space, allowing him to create a scramble to get out of bad positions. That's a very common tactic I see. You see guys like Charles Oliveira use that a lot. He gets into closed guard, he attacks things. Even if he doesn't get it, it at least creates a scramble. From a top position, generally speaking, if he's in a guard, man, it's elbows and bombs, right? Like, he is... Like, that's how he got Sugar Sean. Like, I know Sugar Sean hurt his knee or whatever, but he was on top of him and, landed heavy elbows. Like, whether his knee was hurt or not. Like, he was still eating some pretty heavy elbows from this guy. And so Chito Vera knocking out a guy like Sugar Sean, who also has an excellent jiu-jitsu game, with those heavy elbows was significant. I mean, he's a very dangerous striker from there. Really gets on top and lands heavy. And then from controlling positions, like if you can get to a mount, he's very good at switching between a mount and a back control. But he seems to prefer the back control. That's really what his love is. He loves getting that rear naked choke. He's got a couple nice submissions off of it. He's very threatening from there. He'll get body triangles and start hooking under the leg and start attacking from here. Not like a champion we shall not mention, who doesn't do anything from there. He's actually attacking, and when he doesn't get it, he starts talking about transitioning to arm bars and stuff like that. As opposed to just kind of clinging to a position that he's not doing anything. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right? He's very active from the back. He's actually threatening chokes. He's using striking to create choking opportunities or forcing them to turn away. Then he gets the mount. He throws heavy on him, forces a turn away, and once again, he's attacking again. Very, very active from a controlling position, and he's very good at hitting the back. One of the things, we talked about is him getting takedowns off of submissions. There's been times where he's gone for that snap down or he's gone for, stuff, and in the process, he starts taking guys down, and they end up going to their hands and knees. They go to that referee's position. And he is just so quick to jump on that back and get on top of them. If you give him your back, even for a split second, he's going to take it. And he's got a very, very good jiu-jitsu game. He's very slick, very good at finishing from there. Very damaging, throws a lot of heavy stuff. Just brilliant. I love watching this guy. The more I watch this guy, the more I see technical mastery in action, and every fight he gets a little bit better. And that's why this Rob Font fight was so exciting for me, because I think he discovered a part of his game and he's clearly been working that stuff. And that means that in the future, I'm really hoping to see this again. I hope it doesn't turn into like when you see Brian Ortega make a change in his game against Korean Zombie, fights out at long guard, uses the side kick, and then he never uses it again. I'm hoping that's not the case. Like, sometimes you see that with fighters. I think this is a case where now that's a thing that he's going to do, and your next fight, man, that opponent has a lot to watch out for because now he's got all this elaborate stuff coming at him, but he's also simultaneously working in that Taekwondo Trinity, and it works well towards everything he's doing. It's brilliant. So that is Chito Vera. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you leave it in the comments below if you have your own thoughts.